Good morning and welcome to the Corporate Administrative Services Committee meeting of the Sunshine Coast Regional District. Today is Thursday, February 24th. I'd like to thank you for joining us, and I'd like to acknowledge that we're within the territory of the Seashell First Nation. So we have an agenda in front of us. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Seeing none, I'd look for a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And a motion to receive all the reports. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Move on to item 2, Annex A, pages 1 through 7, and it's over to the CAO.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. The director roles and responsibilities were presented in December, and Directors McMahon, Toth, and Pratt took a cut at doing some wordsmithing to clean them up. They are here for your review and consideration, noting that I think we've already found a couple typos. The last person to put their keen eye to editing this missed a couple of things, and that person's name is Dean.
So would you like to tell us what those changes are first before we do anything else?
I think we found, Director Hiltz, you just found one, I believe?
Yes. First typo was on page 2 for the chair in the summary where it says Chief Elected Officer rather than Chief Executive Officer.
All right, so we've got that one change. Any others? Director Pratt.
There's the echo. So one thing that we caught on the board chair's roles and responsibility was under professional development. We had added in the phrase as appropriate, so attending relevant forums, conferences as appropriate. That as appropriate phrase should also be within the rural directors and the municipal directors under professional development. So on page 5 and on page 7.
So are you suggesting in F, under Chair Professional Development, it should say, and other workshops, forums, and conferences as appropriate that support the work of the Regional District Board?
Yes, so it says that in the chairs section, but it doesn't say that under municipal directors, and it doesn't say that on the electoral area directors.
Well, I don't see it in the copy I have. I don't see it under the chair either, as appropriate. No. Sorry. I see what you're saying in the heading of it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So you'd like as appropriate added into the section under professional development for the other two as well, then, for electoral area directors and municipal directors. Thank you. Director McMahon.
Yes, I want to speak to the importance of commas. So it's comma as appropriate, comma.
Anything else? Director Pratt, Beamish, sorry.
Under the municipal director, because municipal director is distinct from the rural director, I'd like to suggest that we, at the description of the top, we say the municipal director is appointed by their council to represent a member municipality, because it's a distinction from being elected by a rural area to being appointed to the board.
So that would be, instead of just represents a member municipality, you would add the wording.
Yeah, the municipal director is appointed by their council to represent a member municipality.
Okay. Anything else? Director McMahon, your hand is still up. Is there anything else?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'll let Director Beamish go.
Apologize. The only other thing I had in there, and it's not a big point, but under all of the municipal director, reports back to municipal council on regional district matters, but they do the opposite as well. They report to the regional director on municipal matters and how we capture that. It's a kind of a two-way conversation. So then directors' reports, that's where we bring those things up. So.
So how would you think that could be worded? How about regular reports to the board on municipal matters and back to municipal council on regional district matters?
And to the municipal, sure, yeah.
You got it? Okay.
Yeah.
Director McMahon?
This is good. These are all improvements, substantive improvements. The top of page 7, under municipal director roles and responsibilities, the wording is the same about time commitment, and I think that that's not entirely the case, because the SCRD role is only part of the municipal director's role, and they don't have an electoral area role. So I would either suggest taking off the last part of the sentence, and at times may involve activities that approximate or exceed a full-time position, or add something to say that in conjunction with municipal responsibilities may approximate or exceed a full-time position.
Director Toth?
Thank you, Chair. As one of the municipal directors, I like the second option that you brought up there, Director McMahon, because there are a lot of times where the work that I'm doing with the regional district vastly exceeds the work that I'm doing on council. And so at least the equivalent time commitment of a part-time job 100% needs to stay. So I think, at times, in conjunction with municipal work may involve activities that approximate or exceed a full-time position is a perfectly good amendment.
So you're saying the sentence would then read, this role generally involves at least the equivalent time commitment of a part-time job, and in conjunction with municipal duties or municipal duties, at times may involve activities that approximate or exceed a full-time position. Okay. And Sherry, do you have that piece? Thank you. Okay. All right, any others? These are good. Keep them coming. All right, any other? Director McMahon, your hand is still up. Did you have something further?
I can always say more.
Okay.
No, I think that this is a really good first cut at it, and I hope that we point people to this when they're considering running for office in the upcoming election.
Thank you. Director Pratt.
Director McMahon is always very, is always great with her words, very appropriate. I'm happy with how this reads on the first part, I'll say for the first full crack at it. And I think it was a really good way of just having a small team of us working on it together and then bringing it back, because we certainly had a lot of discussion back and forth. So really appreciated the process on this one.
All right, so we have a recommendation on page 1. It will need to be a little revised, I think. Would someone like to make a recommendation? Director Pratt.
I would like to recommend that the updated director roles and responsibilities be approved as amended and presented today.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. Any other comments or questions? I'd like to thank the directors who put the work in. I think you did a fabulous job. As you can tell by the minimal edits and things here, I think we really appreciate all the effort you put in. So thank you for that. All those in favor of the recommendation on the floor? Thank you.
Chair, if I could request,
Yes,
once
thank
this
you.
is finalized, could a copy of this be emailed to me at the municipality? And I would like to share it with council. Thank you.
And perhaps it could come to all the directors as well, because we'll use it in our recruitment for the next election. Thank you. Moving on to item number 3, Annex B, pages 8 and 9. And it says Mr. Buckley is presenting this one.
Thank you, Chair. So the report in front of you and the public is for the contract award for the redesign of the Strd website. As noted in the report, our current website was launched in 2007 and is in need of updating to a more customer-centric, user-friendly and accessible resource to the community. This report follows an RFP process, and I would like to thank staff in purchasing, IT, our corporate officer and our communications officer for their support and their work on this project to date. There are recommendations in the report for the contract award, and I'm available to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you. Directors, any questions or comments? Director Hiltz, save you having to hunt for the hand.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I do have a question. It was in the report. Boy, now I have to get to where my question is. On page 9, it was referencing opportunities for the community to engage, and I'm just wondering about how set the scope is and what can the engagement do to direct how the website is going to be redesigned? Just what's within the scope of the contract and how the community, I guess that's public, including us as directors, get involved. Thanks.
Thanks for your question, Director Hiltz. So I am aware that we already have a website discovery and strategy report that was done in 2020, which assisted us in the formation of this RFP. And as part of that process, we had spoken with the public, with the board, and also with staff. So, items that were brought forward and recommendations that were brought forward through that report will absolutely be factored into the website redesign itself. There are plans for us to set up a Let's Talk page where the public can go ahead and ask questions throughout this process. With regards to engagement, I would obviously speak with the project team first once we have our kickoff meeting. But where I would see opportunities for input is potentially around the soft launch phase. As we continue on with the development of the website itself, the company here will be bringing forward best practices that they've identified in other municipalities and communities. So I'm quite confident with regards to design, accessibility, etc. will be top notch for us. So,
Any other questions or comments? Director McMahon?
I was just wondering, and I don't know how you would measure this, but how big is our website? Like, there's a huge amount of stuff on that website. You dig and you dig and you dig and you keep finding more. Is there a way that we measure how big our website is? And it's not going to get any smaller, so I assume we're going to have a lot of room for expansion.
Yeah, thank you for your question. So to give you an idea, we've got 3,500 PDFs on our website of content currently. So it's not to say that we're going to be clearing all of them off. What we want to do is we want to make that content more accessible. So instead of clicking, let's say, for example, you're looking for information on water. So instead of having to click on and click through to a PDF, which brings you through to another PDF, which brings you through to another PDF, our plan will be to have all that information on one simple page. So the use of drop-down menus and things like that. But it's my intention in leading this project to really take a critical look at the information that is currently on the website and to make sure that everything that goes to the new website serves the public well.
I look forward to having it serve directors well as well. Director Hiltz.
Yeah, it is really exciting, to have this, what is this, 2007? So 11-year-old, 12-year-old website, yeah, it's going to be great. So my question was, in that greatness is kind of, as we've migrated this technology, and are the other business kind of technological pieces that in the business practices that exist, are they ready to mesh with the new redesigned website? So is the expectations of the website already being able to deal with the existing technology? Like I'm thinking the phone systems and cell phones and all this kind of stuff. Is it all integrated, or is there bits to come after the website is kind of designed?
If I could maybe ask you, Director Hills, I'm just trying to clarify. So do you mean more so kind of accessibility from cell phone devices, as in kind of reading the website, or are you speaking more to other kind of IT projects that we have ongoing and how they may integrate into the website?
Yeah, I think it'd be more on the latter, the integration of all these, there's a lot of technological stuff happening, and the website is going to be key. So how the integration works. And one of the things in the request for proposal, one of the ideas was like phone numbers would automatically do a text, and whether the phone system can deal with that kind of thing. Are all the bits in place to integrate all the business systems into the website right now, I guess is the short question.
I'm maybe not best placed to speak to that, Director Hills. I'll tell you, with regards to the website, we're looking more so at the content generation of and the content that'll be appearing on the website itself. With regards to the integration, I see the corporate officer, Sherry has her hand up, maybe able to speak to that a little bit.
Corporate Officer, thanks.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just point out that our IT division has been very involved in drafting the technical specs for both the preliminary website review as well as the proposal for going forward. So it's been fully contemplated in terms of existing and future IT infrastructure.
Yeah, I think what we're referring to is like the functionality and the integration. So even things like somebody needs a pet license. Can they come to our website, go through our website, and actually get their pet license without having to come to the front desk? Those sorts of things. We're looking at how is it meshing with our day-to-day practices.
Thank you, Chair. And that's certainly one of the main objectives of the website, is to facilitate that type of online service. So that will be a major focus going forward. Expanding on what we already have up there in terms of MySCRD. Is that what you're
Yes,
alluding
I
to?
think that's what
Okay.
we're looking at.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Director Hiltz?
Yeah, I guess the subtext to my question is there going to be more expenses down the road in terms of the integration after the website is designed? And that's a speculative question, and we have to get there first. But thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, there are some recommendations on page 8. How would you like to proceed? Director Hiltz.
I'm having to move the recommendations as presented by staff on page 8 of the report.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? A number of people seconding that. We're excited to see this project move forward. All those in favor? Thank you. Moving on, Annex C. This is the RFP for janitorial services for the aquatic facilities, and it's a contract award report, pages 10 and 11. And who we have speaking to this one? Ms. Perot? Nope.
I'll speak to that one.
Thank you.
So our current janitorial service contracts for the Gibsonton District Aquatic Facility and Seashell Aquatic Center are at the end of their terms. The RFP and the report in front of you was issued to procure contracted janitorial services for up to a 5-year term for both facilities. And I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you. Directors. Director Beamish, and then we'll go to Director McMahon.
Yes, this question, what was the value of the contract for the previous 5 years?
The Gibsonton District Aquatic Center was, I have to do the math quickly, it was around $27,000 per year. And the Seashell Aquatic Center was just over $90,000 per year.
Director McMahon?
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was an impact from COVID, like have we changed our cleaning protocols, and is that built into the contract for 5 years? Are we expecting that to continue, or is that a separate question?
We did make an amendment to the cleaning services about a year ago, and that was put in place for several months. When the facilities reopened back to their pretty much full capacity, we reverted almost back to the original services. There were some slight changes that remained.
Thank you. Director Hiltz?
Oh, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I was, with one compliant bid, I was wondering about the ability of local businesses to compete when the scale of the contracts are bundled. And is that does it create or hinder the opportunities of local businesses to compete with larger off-coast businesses? So alignment has some efficiencies, and does that alignment, as the contracts get busy, put smaller coast companies at a disadvantage to that process? And I guess, and ultimately, are we achieving our desired result under the social procurement and how these things work together? Thanks.
So the alignment of the contracts was done solely for efficiency and tendering. Any interested parties had the ability to bid on either one of the facilities or both facilities to give an equal opportunity to smaller companies.
Thank you. So from the question, can I assume that this company that is being successful here is not on coast?
That is correct.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the report in front of us? Seeing none, I'd look for some motions. Director
Chair,
Beamish?
If I could ask a question. Not being on coast, does this then is this actually creating new jobs on the coast for this company?
Yeah, the company is based off coast, but they do hire local staff to perform the services.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, again, recommendations on page 10. How would you like to proceed? Director Toth.
I will move the staff recommendations as presented.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded. Thank you. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor? Thank you very much. Moving on, Annex D, number 5. This is the 2021 final surplus deficits. And Ms. Perot, are you presenting?
Yes, please, Chair. Thank you. So the purpose of this report is to conclude the 2021 year-end process and address the final year-end surplus and deficits. There was a report that was provided at round 2 budget to provide some direction on some anticipated deficits and how we were going to fund those in the financial plan. This particular report provides an update on some of those, and there's an additional recommendation because the Sunshine Coast Emergency Planning Service has a small increase in the 2021 year-end deficit. And so we have included that in the financial plan, and that would be an increase of approximately $4,400. There are other surplus deficits in here, and the summary of them is concluded on page 17 of the agenda. For our financial sustainability policy, the surpluses have been transferred to operating reserves. We will be providing an update on the operating reserves in our financial plan book that will be provided on the website. So if directors and public want to know the status of our operating and capital reserves, including uncommitted amounts after the budget, those can be provided on there. And we do provide quarterly reports to the Corporate and Administrative Services Committee. So we'll provide any questions if you may have any. Thank you.
Thank you. Directors, any questions on any of the items? Director Beamish?
Chair, one of the challenges I always have with the reserves, or rather with surpluses, is that we have previously taxed for this money. And so that are we using these surpluses to offset taxation in 2022 now? Is that how we structure the budget, that when we identify things coming from reserve, it's this money we're talking about? We're not taxing again for the same thing?
Ms. Perot?
Yes, so in some instances and per our financial sustainability policy, surpluses aren't used to reduce taxation per se, because that would create some significant variability from year to year. However, they are used to fund future projects. And in some instances where there isn't a need, they are used to reduce future taxation. So in those particular examples, would be grant and aid, where we reduce taxation. We also reduce some support service functions, and I'll be speaking a little bit more and giving the board an update because we did do some additional amendments or reductions to the budget, the final financial plan. So we have reduced where it was identified that those services were fully serviced and we didn't want to tax again. So again, just to, if you recall, for the financial services function, we reduced that particular budget by $70,000 for 2022 because we had an unfilled vacancy. And so we, again, recognize that we don't want to recover those funds again in the next year. So it will create a little variability in the subsequent year if we do fill that position. The other uses is to fund one-time operating projects, and we did do a lot of that for this year. So for example, in some of our services, we provide detailed reserve tables to show the ins and outs and some of the anticipated reductions and contributions. So I'm just trying to think of a few off the top. We did in our protective services area reduce or use a lot of their surplus to fund things like their wildfire protection equipment. So instead of potentially reducing taxation, we're offsetting taxation by funding those projects. So it's indirect. So we're not asking for additional taxation. So we also definitely are looking to the reserves and see what some of the plans are. What we did have noticed, and we'll provide some more information at the next update, is that over the last few years, we have had a, I would say, significant decline in our reserves because we are using them to fund a lot of these multiple projects that we're approving. So for instance, for the water service, et cetera. So again, looking to how we use these reserves for future requirements. And so we definitely are using them.
Yeah, Paul, one of the concerns I have, for example, looking through this document number 350 at Regional Solid Waste, we identify a $315,000 surplus going to reserves, yet we increase taxation for regional solid waste for different aspects this year, and that's kind of where I see, okay, we tax 1 year for it, we put it away in the bank, and we tax again the next year for. So that's just a concern that I have, is that we are, in fact, I mean, we're not in the water function, but there's significantly high surplus also in regional water services. So it's just one of those concerns I fight this, ask these questions of my own council as well, and so that it's make sure that we're doing the right thing by the taxpayer.
Thank you. Ms. Peru?
Yeah, so in the case of the regional solid waste, so thanks for raising that. That one there in particular, round two, we used some of the surplus, anticipated surplus, to offset some of the anticipated shortfalls in the 2022 budget. So we actually, in that particular case, use some of the operational funds to, say, offset the increase to the landfill remediation project, and also some of the shortfalls. Some of these particular revenues, too, were used or were unforeseen for metal recycling. So we have amended the 2022 budget to offset some taxation for some of that. So some of this particular surplus has been used to offset 2022.
I think a question that would kind of tie into that is, are we starting to look at some of these functions and trying to identify what a reasonable reserve balance is? You know, I mean, we ran into a situation with our, with our landfill this year where we had many unanticipated expenditures and, you know, then had to find the money to cover that. So are we actually looking at this? Because some of these are big ticket items, and yes, we do need to have reserves, but what's the amount we should have? Are we looking at any of that?
Absolutely. So on both the operational and on the capital side, so most certainly the capital side through the asset management planning, we're absolutely addressing what those minimum reserves. So for instance, for protected services, for recreation, for ports, etc. So we're working towards establishing that for our utility services. So from the operational reserve side of the house, I think we do need a little more work on that front. So that's definitely something on my radar. And I want to address as part of the budget debrief conversation about This is the operational side. This isn't talking about the capital side. So both of those policy, I think, are very different, and they really have to be addressed based on the service need. So I think just a unanimous yes. But for instance, part of the challenge with a regional district, and I'm going to use our building inspection services as an example. We have a significant operating reserve. We have absolutely offset any tax subsidy, but we have over $1 million in that particular reserve function. So if the economy has some downturn, we do have some significant reserves to draw from, say to replace vehicles for building inspection and to offset any, and we've had that instance where we had to actually tax $250,000 per year. So, 2 or 3 years of downturn, we have enough money, but it is to say a policy decision should be made in that particular service to say, okay, at this point, maybe we do a negative tax. We give tax back to people because we just are recognizing there's a lot of money there. So those types of things need to be discussed, but I think it's service by service, depending on what the service needs are. So that is what we're trying to do through the asset management and operational plans too. It's not just the capital side. We're looking at the preventative maintenance side of the house as well for each service.
Thank you. Directors, any further questions on the report? All right, seeing none, there are some recommendations on page 12. What would you like to do? Director Hiltz.
Sure, I'll move the recommendations as presented by staff on page 12 of the report.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. Any further questions or comments? Director McMahon.
I have taken to heart the term negative tax. I hadn't heard that one before. That's kind of cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I don't think we'll make that public. All those in favor? Thank you. Seeing no communications, no new business, no in camera, I'd look for a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Any questions from our gallery? Seeing none, we'll see you in the next meeting this afternoon.